Have you ever felt like you were born in the wrong era? Not out of a desire for fantasy, but from a deep yearning for a time when the world seemed brighter, more full of possibility? For me, that time isn't one of castles and knights, but of libraries and scholars. A time when one city was the undisputed center of the world, not because of its armies, but because of its ideas. I want to take you back to that city, to Baghdad, this city of peace. My name is Ishaq, and I remember the light. Not just the sharp, golden sun on the Tigris River, but the light of discovery. The light that shone in the eyes of my colleagues as we unraveled the secrets of the ancients, the Greeks, the Persians, the Indians, and in doing so, laid the foundations for the future. This is the story of a place and an idea. The place was 9th century Baghdad, the heart of the Islamic Golden Age. The idea was simple, yet revolutionary, that all knowledge from every corner of the earth was a gift to be cherished, translated, and built upon. This wasn't just a policy, it was a passion that burned for centuries. And at the center of it all was the House of Wisdom. Before you can understand the House of Wisdom, you must understand my city. You see it in your mind's eye, perhaps as a simple town of sand and stone. But it was a masterpiece, a perfect circle, designed by the Caliph al-Mansur himself. 4 gates, pointing to the 4 corners of our vast and varied world. It was a city built to welcome everyone. I would walk through the markets, the souks, on my way to the library. The air was thick with the scent of cardamom from Yemen and saffron from Persia. You'd hear a dozen languages before you even reached the bridge. Merchants haggling, poets reciting verses, children of all faiths playing together in the courtyards. We didn't see our diversity as a weakness, we saw it as our greatest strength. At the heart of this thriving metropolis was the palace complex, and within it, the institution that would change the world, the Bayt al-Hikmah, the House of Wisdom. It began as a private library for the caliphs, but under the visionary Caliph al-Ma'mun, it blossomed into something the world had never seen. It wasn't a silent, dusty place like you might imagine. The House of Wisdom was alive. It was a university, a translation center, an observatory, and a debating hall all in one. The Caliph would send emissaries to the farthest lands, to Constantinople, to India, with chests of gold, not to buy weapons, but to buy books. Priceless manuscripts from Aristotle, Plato, Euclid, Galen, names that had been all but forgotten in the West. My corner of the library was dedicated to medicine. I remember the day we received a rare copy of Galen's anatomical works. It was in Syriac, which was a translation of the original Greek. My task, alongside an Nestorian Christian scholar named Johanna, was to translate it into Arabic. He knew the Syriac, I knew the medical terminology. We would argue, debate, share meals, and together, we uncovered knowledge that had been sleeping for centuries. This collaborative spirit was the engine of the Golden Age. It wasn't about one religion or one culture. It was a shared human endeavor. Muslim, Christian, and Jewish scholars worked side by side, united by a common language, Arabic, the language of science, and a common goal, to understand the universe. A typical day? I would rise at dawn for the far prayer. The city would be quiet then. I'd share a simple breakfast of bread, olives, and cheese with my family. Then, the walk to the House of Wisdom. My work was slow, meticulous. Sometimes a single sentence could take a whole day. We had to be translators, but also detectives. What did this ancient Greek physician truly mean? How does this concept fit with what we observe in the hospital al-Baymaristan? The scholars of Baghdad didn't just translate. They critiqued, corrected, and created. In mathematics, al-Khwarizmi, a Persian scholar in the House of Wisdom, took the Indian numbering system, including the revolutionary concept of zero, and systematized it. He wrote a book whose title gave us the word algebra. His own name, Latinized, gave us the word algorithm. I remember seeing al-Khwarizmi explaining his methods on a dust board. It seemed like magic, a way to solve for the unknown, Algebra, the restoration of balance. He wasn't just doing sums, he was creating a language for logic itself. A language that powers your modern world in ways you can't even imagine. From banking to computing, the ghost of al-Khwarizmi is there. In astronomy, they built upon the works of Ptolemy, creating vast observatories to map the stars with unprecedented accuracy. They calculated the circumference of the Earth to within a tiny fraction of its true value. They gave us the names of stars you know today: Betelgeuse, Rigel, Vega. We believed that to study the creation was to honor the Creator. The patterns in the stars, the laws of optics discovered by Ibn al-Haytham, the intricate workings of the human body, it was all part of a magnificent whole. We weren't trying to replace faith with science. We saw science as an act of faith, a way to appreciate the divine masterpiece. But no golden age lasts forever. The political landscape began to shift. Internal fractures appeared. More rigid ideologies began to challenge the spirit of open inquiry. The world outside of Baghdad was also changing. The city, which had stood for so long as a beacon of stability, became more vulnerable. I was an old man when the drums of the Mongol armies were heard in the distance. 1258. It is a year seared into the memory of our world. They say the river Tigris ran black with the ink of the books thrown from our libraries, and then red with the blood of our scholars. Everything we had built washed away. But it wasn't truly the end. The catastrophe, yes. Tragedy, absolutely. But a fire can burn a library, yet it cannot destroy an idea. The knowledge that had been gathered and nurtured in Baghdad had already spread. It traveled through trade routes and into Al-Andalus in Spain. Scholars fleeing the destruction carried their precious books with them. When Europe began to awaken into its own Renaissance, it was the Arabic translations of the Greek classics, saved and refined by scholars like Ishaq, that they turned to. The light of Baghdad had not been extinguished. It had merely been passed on. I often wonder what you think of us, looking back from your incredible future. Do you see the threads of our work in your own world? The algebra in your computers? The medical knowledge in your hospitals? I hope you do. And I hope you remember that the pursuit of knowledge is a sacred trust passed from one civilization to the next. It is the greatest inheritance of humankind. Protect it.